This is a very special sketchbook. It's actually created from a real book. So there was this company that I found on Instagram. They are no longer in business anymore, but they used to take old book covers and then basically recycle them, take out the guts of the book, and then create different sketchbooks out of them, which are just truly one-of-a-kind, unique sketchbooks. You can't replicate this. So you would choose the cover of the book, and then you would choose the kind of paper that you wanted inside. And I think there were a couple of other customizations, but for this one I chose to have watercolor paper. And then there's also a little bookmark ribbon that's included. A truly unique sketchbook that I treasure not only for the way that it looks, but also how things evolved and how I used it over time. You'll notice that the span of time for this journal is from September 19th, 2021, all the way until October 5th, 2023. So it spanned a little over 2 years, but there was a lot of gaps in time, mainly after these like watercolor and sketchbook exercises, until I turned it into a travel journal for the last 2/3 of it. So opening up to the first page, these are a bunch of stamps that I got when I was at a pen show in San Francisco back in August of this year. They had so many different cool stamps, and I just wanted to cover the inside of my journal with them. And I also did it to the back page too. So you'll see a lot of repeats from some of these stamps, like this one. I also stamped inside. So the very first page of this sketchbook, I created this on September 19th, 2021. And this is a watercolor wash in the background with a few different colors. And then I layered different paper on top and created blackout poetry, which is where you underline certain words that you want to emphasize to create some kind of poem or just something interesting out of it, and then you black out the rest of it to highlight those words. I loved using these chapter pages because it just makes it feel like the start of the book to use this on the first page. I have a video on my channel about how I create blackout poetry, so you can learn more about it from that video. So this is some lettering I created on 2 different days. I created this one on September 26th, and then 2 days later I created this one to mirror the styles so that they matched. And I have a video on my channel where I'm creating this, so if you're interested in the behind the scenes, I'll link that video down below. But basically I started out with pencil, going in and outlining the letters, and then I filled it in with a black marker for the main letter, and then used gold watercolor highlights on top. Another ink and watercolor lettering piece. So it looks like I did this out of order. Technically I did this before these 2 pieces. I think I skipped a page on accident. This was around the time that Taylor Swift had released her version of the song Wildest Dreams from the 1989 album, and so I was inspired by that and wanted to do a lettering piece for it. So similar to the other piece, I started out with pencil, outlined the lettering in a black pen, and then filled it in with this metallic pink watercolor paint. I also have a video where I create this, so I'll link it down below as well. These are 2 really simple pieces that I created, just initial pencil sketches and outlining in a black marker. Actually, I think a lot of these I already have videos on where I'm walking through the process, so again, I'll just link all of these below. But I like how both of these are simple black and white pieces next to each other. They create a cohesive spread. This was an abstract watercolor exercise I worked on, and it's basically just taking one color, so this purplish blue color, and playing around with tone, so having darker versus lighter tones, and with scale, so playing with tone and scale, and also positive and negative space, so just really filling this in, and it creates kind of like a cool pattern. So just fun little exercises for warm-ups. And you can see that there was a little bit of a jump in time here. So this is October 2021, and then this is August 10th of 2022. Another watercolor piece. So this is watercolor paper, which is why I started out with a lot of watercolor exercises in the first few pages, and you'll see how things evolve over time. And for this one, I used washi tape to outline this and create smooth lines, and then I just filled in with pattern of different colored watercolor paints to create these patterns. And this looks like this was created on the same day. I don't think I let things fully dry because you can see it got a little messy and transferred over on the page. So a couple days later, another watercolor exercise, so playing around with creating trees and feathers. You can see for these ones I started out with a light pencil sketch and then went in with the watercolor, whereas with the trees I just went ahead and started creating the shapes with the watercolor brush. Again, I guess this is out of order. This is a few days before. So this is a little bit of collage, combining pieces of craft paper, newspaper headline clippings, other images from newspaper articles. This is a photo from a magazine, and this is from some packaging that I cut out. I like how these look like a cohesive spread together, and they create one theme. So it looks like this spread was created on the same day as this one. More watercolor warm-up exercises, so just pencil sketches first, doing different art supplies, books, and then going in with the watercolors. I think here I was actually drawing and painting some of the watercolors I have, so you can see the colors I was using at the time. These are mostly done with black pen and various Posca markers, and this is all Posca markers, so just different widths. This is a metallic silver with a yellow and a metallic gold on top, and just playing around with creating different drawings. I can see by the date, August 16th, which is the anniversary of Elvis Presley's death. So this was a piece inspired by him, with the lightning bolt and some of the style of sunglasses he used to wear. And then this is a spread of just a lot of different line art drawings. So I'm using one ballpoint pen in blue and just creating lots of different drawings. Kind of trying to stick to a similar theme of analog. So you've got like a record player, camera, cassette tape, things like that. Typewriter, old ticket stubs, newspaper. So again, I really like how this spread looks really cohesive. Same style of drawing and one color palette, really simple, but it looks good together. So here on the left, this is an exercise where it's one continuous line art drawing. So you place the pen down and you don't lift it up the entire time that you create the drawing until you're finished with it. So I was practicing with that idea and created a bunch of different butterflies and a ladybug. This was created with a brush marker for the lettering, and then I used a little bit of black watercolor to create this wash on the side, and then I basically like flicked the brushes in order to create all of these shapes of splatter. This was an exercise in repetition, so you can sort of see it, but I created a grid line in pencil, horizontal lines going this way and the opposite direction, and then basically filling in each of the shapes with a shape and making sure that it's essentially the same. Obviously it's going to vary because watercolor can't be the same. So just playing around with repetition and color. For this spread, I mostly use different Posca markers. So for this one, there's just a simple line art drawing with a black pen and filling in with the Posca markers. And over here, this is a brush marker that I used on top to create the trees. Somewhat unified in theme, we've got a desert themed landscape and then more foresty here. So both landscapes, but just differing in location. This is a simple, mostly lettering in black pen. So just kind of lettering the date, little words reflecting on some things that happened that day. The following day, some more lettering and just incorporating a little bit of drawing here with the coffee. This is done in black pen and some neutral colored pencils for the shading and the coffee. I don't remember what I was trying to create here. I think I was just playing around with how color would change, kind of like a little bit of a rainbow from green to blue, purple, red, and orange. Just playing around with a brush marker on top of that. This is line art and watercolor, so I used a light gray marker to create the outline of the bottle and use a light gray watercolor to create these shadows and then steam or something coming out of the bottle. And then this is a thin red marker, and then I used a light red pink watercolor to fill in this badge. So this was inspired by Polaroids. So basically I drew the frame of a Polaroid and then filled it in with some kind of photo. So some kind of abstract landscapes that I was going here with neutral colors that related in theme so that they would look good side by side. A full page lettering spread. So I think I started with a light wash of this magenta watercolor. And then after that dried, I went in and created the lettering outline in pencil first, and then go in with a black ink marker to fill it in. And I think there was a little bit of bleeding done here. As you can see, the colors were starting to bleed in a bit here into the background. I like the simple color palette of this page, just the magenta highlight color and then the black lettering. Here we have a little bit of a mixed media. So on this page we have different things that I collected from mail that I received, and this was from a paper bag from a gift shop in San Francisco, and then I was combining it with stamps that I received on other mail and just various stickers to create some kind of travel theme. And over here I have a light wash of peach and a little bit of orange in the background. And then on top, line art of some flowers. And this is a sticker. These were exercises that took maybe, like 5 minutes to create, just something to get going. This is a map of national parks and monuments. And it came from a puzzle that I did of this very design. So this is just the print that it gives you so you know what the puzzle looks like when it's complete. And I loved the design of it so much that I wanted to keep it. So I cut it up and added it to my sketchbook. So here's where my sketchbook starts to turn more into a travel journal versus watercolor and sketches. I traveled quite a bit this year and I wanted a way to document these travels. So starting with boarding passes, and then just going in with various things that I wanted to keep from those trips, like the Metro card from New York, receipts. These are some photos I printed, and just documenting my days on these travel. So having breakfast at this hole-in-the-wall restaurant, in New York City. These are tickets from the 9/11 Memorial Museum. This was from a wristband that I cut out. A photo, a black and white version of a photo I took. And this is a brochure from a different museum I went to, the Jewish Museum. Here in the background, I'm just using a little bit of a broad chisel type Posca marker to create some texture in the background. So for this trip, I included a lot of printed photos. So these are all photos I took with my iPhone and edited on an app on my phone and then printed different things from my travel. It was still pretty cold when I went there in end of March 2023, so still in the midst of winter. These are some books that I bought while I was in New York. This was one of the bookstores that I went to. The Met. The Met has so many beautiful brochures, and I just took like one of each of all of them so that I could cut them up and create lots of different cool spreads out of them. This is a photo I took, and these are just from probably at least 2 or 3 different brochures. This is a map of floor 1 and mezzanines of the various exhibits that were going on at the time. The map continuing for floor 2 and 3. This is from the packaging of a gift shop bag from the Met. I loved the typography, the big bold colors, and wanted to include that in my journal. These were tickets from the Met Museum, and again, more clippings from those brochures. Same thing. I really wanted to include all of these illustrations because I just thought they were really beautiful. This is from the Guggenheim Museum, and that was actually under construction, so couldn't see much inside of it, but that's part of the outside of the building. Central Park, packaging, things that I bought from the Strand bookstore. One of the cafe or coffee shops that I went to, this is a chain in New York. This particular one was in Brooklyn. This is from the coffee sleeve packaging, business card, nice elegant design. This is an actual postcard I bought, vintage looking design for Brooklyn. Photos I took of the Brooklyn Bridge, another bookstore that I went to, Books Are Magic. They have 2 locations in Brooklyn, and this is one of their bookmarks, which I love. I just love the colors and the type. More photos I took of the Brooklyn Bridge and while walking across the Dumbo Bridge. This was from a mural outside of the Books Are Magic bookstore. They have this cool mural on the side of their bookstore, which is great for taking photos of. This is packaging from a bag and a matchbook and tissue paper and so forth from a cat-themed vintage bookstore in New York. I picked up a couple of things there, but a really nice curation of vintage books and a lot of cat-inspired things as well. This is a photo of the Pillow Cat bookstore from the outside. This was from a letterpress shop that I went to. I picked up a couple of postcards, and I also went to Cornelia Street, which, if you're a fan of Taylor Swift's music, then you'll understand the reference there, and wanting to visit that street. A bunch of other things from various bookstores I went to, Left Bank Books, 3 Lives and Company. This was a sticker from Books Are Magic. I went to 2 different Strand book locations. So this is the main Strand bookstore, which has like multiple floors and just so many books. But they also have a smaller location. So I went to both of them. I love collecting the bookmarks from all of the bookstores that I go to, so I like to use one and then keep one for a souvenir. While I was in New York, I went to a Broadway show, Parade. So this is from the brochure, the tickets from the show. Went to the Hershey's chocolate store to try a different flavor. I think this was on maybe the last day in New York. So from coffee, hot chocolate, breakfast from this little cafe that I think is called Banter. I loved the branding that they had. So this is the business card. They gave out this postcard when they would give you the check. So I wanted to keep those. Also on the last day in New York, went to the Natural History Museum. So these are the tickets. This is a coaster from a coffee shop I went to. Another vintage inspired postcard just to close out my trip in New York City. Receipts from public transit. And then this is the boarding passes, everything for the flight back home. Then going into another trip, maybe like a week or two later, flying to Atlanta, Georgia. So the boarding pass, from the baggage claim tickets, more postcards that I bought on this trip. So I love the vintage style with the name of the state and then the map. So on this trip, did a lot of exploring in various places. After flying into Atlanta, Georgia, drove to Nashville, Tennessee. So including the map here. And this is from a coffee shop I tried in Nashville. Sticker menu, the coffee sleeve packaging. On that same day, went to the Grand Ole Opry backstage tour. So this is tickets. Got to actually stand on this stage at the end of the tour. A lot of cool brochures. So this one I really loved, and I just couldn't bear to cut it up, so I just left it in its entirety so I could refer to it later. Love the design of it. I really should have gotten like another one so that I could cut up pieces of it, but I only had the one. So just various attractions and things to do in and around Nashville, Tennessee. So I created a pocket so that I could store it in there. This is from a bag from the Cracker Barrel restaurant. Then on to a national park that I visited briefly, Mammoth Cave in Kentucky. This is most of the map of the national park. And then these are from a different brochure, cutting out the different trails that you could see. When I was there, I only got to see this portion of the cave. Didn't have time to get tickets and view the rest of it. So I definitely want to return one day and explore it more. Following day, got to go to another national park. So this is for the Great Smoky Mountains, which borders Tennessee and North Carolina. So these are bits of clippings from various brochures, parking ticket. Went to the top of Clingman's Dome Trail. Clingman's Dome is a 1 mile moderate difficult climb to the top. Average temperatures, just various things from the national park. This is the map of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, which is a huge park. I definitely had to cut off part of the map in order to include it in my journal here, but this is a majority of it. Another thing I did while there was visit Laurel Falls Trail and got to see this waterfall. So after the Great Smoky Mountains, drove back to Atlanta, Georgia. So different things here, another map, business cards from a steakhouse restaurant, did some axe throwing, ticket from hotel. This is from one of those, a blind date with a book. It's a surprise book that's wrapped up and all you have are descriptions of what the book is, and that's how you would choose it. So this was the packaging of one of those that I got, and I liked how extensive the drawing and description of it was, so I wanted to keep it and include it in my journal here. So some other things from different bookstores and coffee shops, another bookmark, and other places that I visited while in Atlanta. So this sketchbook ends probably about halfway through that trip, and then I continued my travel journal spreads in a different sketchbook that's not quite done yet, so I'll share that one when it's done, but this is where this one ends. And again, you can see the stamps from the San Francisco Pen Show, which I think is just a great way to bookend the start and end of this sketchbook. You can see how things really varied in what I created in this sketchbook. I started with watercolor, lettering, various drawings, and a little bit of collage, some line art sketches, and then just moving into a full-on travel journal, which I hadn't anticipated when I started this. But what I really liked about this sketchbook is how thick the paper is. And so when you're pasting in things for a travel journal, it ends up taking up a lot of space. So even though this is thick paper and I pasted in a lot of things, it doesn't actually expand a lot because there's not that many pages in here. So I felt like it was perfect for a travel journal for that purpose.